able to make time for us. So basically, let's talk about the oral, the report that was presented to the president and also handed over to the attorney general. From where you sit, we are talking about the quantum of cases that has been captured in this report. How sure are you that justice will be delivered and all that is supposed to be recouped will be done? And I'll refer you to a quote by the former attorney general, where he said that I see Ooral as a toothless institution without the power to investigate or engage in many activities. What's your take on this?
On a lighter note, indeed, Ooral was a toothless institution to the extent that we didn't envisage it to be a toothful institution. We had explained over and over again the purpose of Ooral. Even said it was a preparatory team to gather information and petitions that were already flowing to the president even before the electioneering period. So the former attorney general didn't say anything. They were just setting their own questions and answering it. So that's really by way of responding to that matter. We communicated clearly what the mandate of Ooral is. Ooral team was not a prosecutorial team. Ooral team was not an arresting team. Ooral team was not was merely an information gathering. They were not even truly an investigative team. They were an information gathering team, and they've done a beautiful job of giving the Attorney General the beginnings of what would be a very comprehensive audit of the outgone government. But before I say anything further, I would like to communicate a few things. I think that everybody who wants to engage the Mahama administration should understand two things: that there is a spirit and letter to what he wants to do and how he intends to reset this economy. There is the software and then there's the hardware. If you come to the software, there's a philosophy of the NDC that is guiding how he wants to govern this country. But there's also a spirit behind it, and he has communicated it throughout the campaign period and even when he stood at the Independence Square and swore his various oaths of office. What are these? His Excellency John Dramani Mahama has promised to lead a government of conscience, a government that put the people of Ghana at the center of Ghana's development. He has promised and shown commitment to lead a transparent, an accountable, and a just government. Even as he would expect accountability from political opponents, the 4 swearing-in ceremonies that he led of the various ministers and committees, one charge runs through all of it. He kept on admonishing all appointees to be minded by the ethos of his government, that he will not tolerate arrogance, profligacy, disrespect to the people, and disrespect to the social contract. We must therefore understand that His Excellency's government wants to build a solid foundation from which we can truly reset this country. It means we have to go back to the right values. It means we have to go imbibe the right attributes, especially of government appointees. He has announced that he will be unveiling what he describes as the code of conduct and standards for public officers, including his appointees. He had made it clear that he is going to run a country where various appointees will be held to the highest standards, just as he would expect same standards to be held of, the previous appointees. So there's a lot of responsibility on the NDC government, on the appointees who are on the list to work with His Excellency. to know that we are a government that wants to show a marked departure from the misgovernance that we have experienced over the past 8 years. If we say that, we must mean it, and we must do the things and conduct ourselves in the ways that show that truly the NDC is a base party. The NDC is a party for the people. The NDC will always uphold the interests of Ghana over and above anything else. And the NDC is a party that is truly interested in also solving the problems of its own members as well as the generality of Ghanaians.
Well,
If you understand this philosophy, then you will understand even when we take missteps, the corrective measures we quickly take to correct those missteps are indicative of a listening government, not an intransigent one. And I pray that such will continue. I've heard people say that, oh, why have you appointed people and in less than a week or two you have reassigned them? Governance is constantly in motion. And sometimes when you're planning, the planning process lends itself to review. Any well-intentioned and good governed institution, whether it's corporate or otherwise, knows that they are constantly doing review of their processes, their systems, and their structures. Sometimes information will come to you that tells you that perhaps this person will do better here than this person. Maybe at the time of the decision making, you were not fully privy to the full gamut of those informations. So as we interface the Mahama administration, let's be minded by these core principles that will guide everything we do. Because obviously in governance, sometimes mistakes will be made. What is important is how the leaders take responsibility for those mistakes. And that is why NPP lacks a lot of integrity. Because they keep calling for the NDC or government, the Mahama administration, to behave better when they themselves have never considered all the instances that they have behaved poorly and continue to behave poorly whilst in office as a micro minority. They never come to the equity table with clean hands. In fact, they never concede that their hands are soiled in any way, rather than expecting higher moral, ethical, behavioral standards of the NDC. We are okay to accept that. Even we hold ourselves to those greater and higher standards.
very well. Now, Shamima, I have listened to people who have questioned the commitment of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama's government towards the fight against corruption. Now, they make the argument that if you are really poised to fight corruption, why are you discontinuing, why are you discharging cases that were leveled against people who were under your administration in the previous years? You have just assumed office, and in less than 2 months, 3 months, you have discharged people who are standing trial or under prosecution. Is that enough to say that, I mean, you are really committed to the fight?
Thank you very much. Sometimes I would hope, and I know that the media will do it, that we present a clearer and bigger picture. My first question to ask is, do we know the numbers of cases currently before the Attorney General? How many of such cases have been discontinued? What is the percentage of those cases that have been discontinued? What is the profile of the cases that have been discontinued? How many individuals are involved as against the full complement of cases that are in the law courts at various standards? When we state the clearer picture, then we will disbank the the propaganda that the NPP intends to throw into the system, so that they will whitewash their failed image, and so that they would avoid accountability. And it is all an attempt to court a non-existent public sympathy, because it is the people of Ghana that has demanded the highest levels of accountability from the New Patriotic Party government, the outgone Nana Bawumia government. Anyone with the right intentions who listened to the very comprehensive legal reasoning and grounds for those the discontinuance of those cases by the Attorney General Honorable Dominic Ayine 2 days ago, would come to no conclusion that these are signs of a government not committed to upholding the rule of law and justice or accountability. He gave the reasons for discontinuing those cases. So when we put these questions forward, let's put names to these cases so that people will understand the philosophy behind those reasons. If you take the examples that he gave, the Atuforsin case, the Ofosu Ampofu case, even the Esiama case, including the Honorable former Minister for Works, Collins Dowde's case, with respect to the Saglemi housing project, there were reasons that he gave. And lawyers have said these are plausible reasons. Again, go back to our philosophy of wanting to run a transparent and accountable government. The Attorney General is not obliged by any rule, law, or precedent to explain his reasons. He's not obliged to do that. So we could have kept quiet, as we have seen in the character of the previous administration, and do as we please without recourse to the sentiment, for clarity or understanding, of the populace. We have chosen a different path, and as he has said, if there are cases that incite public interest, he will be willing to explain further to the people of Ghana. We must not, in our interest as a party to be just, to be perceived to want to be just to people who have no justice in their bloodstream. And to truly be just, you must also be just to your own people, because we know that these individuals were being politically persecuted because of their association with the NDC. And there were no real substantive grounds, because we have seen that it is possible under a government to make a presentation to a Supreme Court and cause the Supreme Court to convene within hours and make a determination of a case to suit a certain purpose. We are witnesses to the optics that governed the Algon government, where they stacked the courts with people perceived to be pro their cause. In the history of this nation from 1960 up to now, no president has appointed the number of judges across all our courts like Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Many right-thinking Ghanaians have expressed their worry at some of the outcomes coming from our courts and some of the judicial decisions that some of our judges have been delivering. And so we as a government, we will protect and uphold justice for members of the NDC that have been persecuted in the past on good grounds, just as we will uphold and protect the rights of any Ghanaian who is being illegitimately, unfairly, unethically persecuted.
Okay, I'm grateful. Before I come back to the studio, let me just ask this quick question. I remember when the mention of Ooral came, Ghanaians were so excited, and they they have been anticipating that these cases will be fast-tracked for the necessary recouping of the lost monies. Now, you look at the quantum of cases, over 2,000 cases, and we know how our justice systems work. Sometimes cases are being delayed. From where you sit, even as an individual, how sure are you, how soon are you looking at this case is being tried or investigated for prosecution to be done?
The Attorney General, Honorable Dominic Ayine, has assured that he is not a lawyer that charges people for offenses and then goes fishing for evidence to back his charges, that they're going to ensure that the preparatory work is done in such a manner that once prosecution starts, the outcome will be almost certain. So we're not going to go to court with cases that due diligence haven't been done on those specific briefs. That is number one assurance. Number two, there is a possibility of reactivating the regional tribunals, which sits in our constitution. I recall that during the vetting of the Attorney General, some elements within the opposition were trying to create a certain perception or impression that any idea to reactivate the regional tribunals is a return to some, dark days. But we are saying that the regional tribunal sits in our constitution, and we have been told that the internal logic of that 1992 constitution was also to allow citizens participate in justice delivery. So again, if the courts are overwhelmed, there are creative alternatives we can use, because some of these cases might be long hanging fruits. You have taken something that does not belong to you, bring it back. If you have caused a certain level of financial loss to the state, please be surcharged, return it. If you have acquired some state assets for a consideration where well below the expected, value, we should be able to ask you to bring it back. If you have engaged in criminal conduct and enterprise, you should be made to face the full recourse of the criminal prosecution system. So I'm saying that there's a logic to this administration. And that logic, whereas we will exact strict accountability from those that have cost this country and caused pain to many citizens of this country, we will do so through the right channels. And that's why I again want to reiterate that the members of this government, the supporters and sympathizers of this administration, our grassroots, understand that the vision of His Excellency is to lead Ghana and leave a legacy so strong in 4 years that the NDC will be the only viable political party in another 8 to 16 years. We can achieve it if we all understand the sacrifices we have to make, sometimes personally, and that sometimes the way we roll out the interventions may not be in the energies expected or demanded, but to know that ultimately the right things will be done, and to trust the leadership to do the right things, and to trust that when there are missteps, immediate remedial actions will be taken to correct those missteps. But of course, it shouldn't be that they become one mistakes too many that we will guide against by doing the necessary preparatory works even before we roll out some of these things.
Shamima, finally, before I let you go, though it's going to be our next conversation, let me just pick your reactions to that. Earlier in the week, we saw the special prosecutor declaring the former finance minister wanted. What's your take on that? And is that a way to go?
Again, we heard during the media briefing, press briefing by the Attorney General, he was asked that question, and he also communicated his stance, and that stance of the Attorney General remains the stand of the government. He said he also woke up to the announced press conference of the special prosecutor, which office is as a result of an instrument of law. And even though it is expected to be an independent agency, it still works, as with the permission of the Attorney General. So the works of the OSP must, is expected, must have some bearing with the Attorney General. So the expectation would have been that the OSP would have maybe pre-informed the AG of his plans. So the Attorney General has assured Ghanaians that he is going to reach out to the OSP and understand, what he's working on and what he's working with, and we will take it from there. We will take it from there. But bottom line is, Ghanaians expect accountability from the outgoing, government. A lot of things have gone wrong. A lot of scandals marked that administration. A lot of public resources remain unaccountable for, and I think it's fair. Once you've been in public office, once you have shepherded over our collective, resources, once we haven't seen some of the tangibles that we expect to be seen, we expect to see as a result of those resources that have come in, I think that some amount of auditing deserves to be done. And anyone who has been part of a previous government, just as has happened to the NDC after Jerry Rawlings, to the NDC after Professor Evans Atta Mills, to the NDC after John Mahama Chapter 1, I think the NPP must be open to accountability. They must come into the jurisdiction and open themselves up to accountability. At the end of the day, if no wrongdoing is found, on you, you walk a free man. It comes with the role of a public officer. There are some collateral, negatives, and these are some of them. If you've not done anything wrong, no need to fear. But if you have done certainly something wrong, then you must pay the price for those wrongdoings.